All right, the fifth lens for your personal brand is what I call the signature story. So we all have something that got us to where we are. So this is really the answer to the question, why do you do this? How did you get here? We all have a story. Even if our story isn't the most exciting story or the most thrilling story, everyone has a story about how they ended up doing what they're doing. And that story is really an important part of your personal brand. So again, I'm going to give you an example from one of my clients who's a chiropractor. Actually, now she's the VP of Finance in a fully funded startup. But prior to that, she was a chiropractor. And when I first started working with her, she said to me, I give these speeches and they're always asking me for a bio, but I don't want to say in my bio that I used to be a chiropractor. And I said to her, well, why not? And she said, because it's kind of embarrassing that I used to be a chiropractor and now I'm a VP of Finance. And I said, well, let me ask you a question. When you were a chiropractor, what did you do? And she said, well, people would come in and I'd examine them and I'd look at their body like a system of health and I'd see where the system was off and I'd fix it. Great. Say, as a financial director, what do you do? She'd go, well, I look at the system of our finances and where the finances need to be a little corrected, I correct them and I make sure they're healthy. And I said, it's the exact same thing. The only difference is you used to focus on the health of the body as a system, and now you focus on the health of the finances as a system. Why don't you start your speech by talking about what you learned from being a chiropractor that's helped you as a VP of Finance? And she said, all right, I'm going to try it. Well, after about 3 months of doing that, she called me up and she said, Karen, you know what? The thing people comment on the most in the speeches I give is that part about what I learned about being a chiropractor or what being a chiropractor taught me about being a VP of Finance. That's a perfect example of a signature story. That's where part of her story really enriched her personal brand. So the key is to figure out for you, what is the part of your story that really makes you you? What is the part of your story that brought you into the business that you're doing? What is the part of your story that had you create the business that you created? When you know that signature story, you then have a whole other lens through which to talk about your personal brand and express your personal brand in the world. So this signature story answers the question, why do you do what you do? And the practical way to get to that is to do what we call a free write. Ask yourself the question, how did I get to this place? What inspired me to create this business or have this career or go on this path? And just start writing. And the key with the free write is that you don't edit, you don't stop and edit and go back and edit. You just write. You don't judge, you don't evaluate, you just keep writing. Because what will happen eventually is then when you read it through, you're going to pick out all these gems. You're going to find these gems that are the essence of your signature story. And then there's a second part to this. And the second part to this is that you actually have to start telling some people your signature story. And it's best to tell people who don't know you and haven't met you. So you want to tell people that are new clients or people that are new friends or people that you've met, you want to tell them little bits of your signature story and you want to see what lands. Well, you can see it in their eyes. You want to see what is it that really has meaning to them, what sticks. When you know what sticks, you'll know you've got your signature story down. And I just want to say that a signature story isn't something you make up. It isn't something you make more dramatic than it was. It isn't something you ever lie about or you ever tell a story about that isn't true. It's really finding your authentic signature story because it answers the question, why do you do what you do? And that's a critical part of your personal brand because when you can tell people your why, they can understand the essence and the heart of your brand. The sixth lens through which you want to look at your personal brand is what I call signature services. And these are the core competencies, offers, and services that you bring to what you do. So let me give you an example. I was at a conference a few years ago speaking, and during the luncheon, I was sitting next to a gentleman, and I asked him, what do you do? And he said, I'm an executive coach. And I said, oh, really? What kind of executive coaching do you do? And he said, well, I work with executives to help them be more productive. And I said, oh, that's really interesting. How do you do that? Well, I help them figure out what they're really committed to and interested in. I said, oh, that's so interesting. How do you do that? Well, by coaching them. Okay, well, how do you do that? And we just went round and round and round in a loop for about 10 minutes. And finally, I just asked him how his chicken was, and we moved on with another topic. But the point was he didn't know how to explain to me his signature service in a way that told me what exactly it was that he was bringing to the party. So, for example, I've talked to other people that are executive coaches who've told me, I've developed a proprietary model for productivity that I teach to executives. That's something very specific. So the thing about a signature service is it's specific. It's a particular competency or ability or service that you are bringing to the work that you do. So the practical way to figure out your signature service is to think about and to write down all of the services, offers, core competencies, products that you bring to the party, right? It's those things that you're offering to the world as part of your personal brand. And I just want to say at this point that I know a lot of what we've talked about so far, I've recommended writing things down and stepping back and reflecting or talking to other people. A lot of figuring out your personal brand is not something magical. It really is the hard work of thinking and reflecting on who you are and then articulating what it is that you've discovered. So even when I work with clients one-on-one, a lot of how I figure out their personal brand is in dialogue, is in discussion with them. You know, it's really hard to do this stuff for yourself because we can't see through the inside of our own eyelids. That's why discussing this with someone else helps you to understand and to figure out what your personal brand really is.